Stop waiting for a sign, start creating a schedule. This is not just a catchy phrase or some motivational slogan to hang on your wall. It's a reality check, a wake-up call. Because the truth is, most people aren't stuck, they're stalling. They tell themselves they're waiting for the right time, the right energy, the right inspiration. They convince themselves they're being patient, when really, they're just procrastinating with flair. You see, we live in a world obsessed with signs. People look to the sky, their horoscope, their social feed, or some random stranger's advice to determine whether they should start. They ask for signs because it gives them a buffer. It relieves them of responsibility. If the sign never shows up, well then, they never had a chance, right? It's a clever trick the mind plays to avoid discomfort, because once you schedule something, now it's real. Now it's on the clock, and now you're accountable. Waiting for a sign is passive, it's soft, it's emotional and unreliable. You could spend your whole life waiting for the stars to align, the mood to strike, the world to send you a magical green light that tells you, okay, now's your moment. But life doesn't work that way. The universe is not a concierge service. It doesn't hand out signs to people on the couch. It rewards action, not daydreams. And most of all, it rewards structure. A schedule, on the other hand, is active. It's deliberate. It's not something you wait on, it's something you create. When you sit down and plan your day, your week, your month, you are taking control. You're drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is when I move. This is when I act. This is when I stop talking and start becoming. And when you do that, when you actually put things on the calendar, you send a signal to your own mind that this is real, this is serious, and this is non-negotiable. That's the difference between the successful and the stuck. Successful people don't wait to feel ready. They don't scroll around hoping something will inspire them to take that first step. They put it on the schedule. They say, every morning at 7:00, I train. Every night at 8:00, I study. Every Sunday, I plan the week. They treat their dreams like appointments, not wishes. The irony is, most people already know what they need to do. They're not confused. They're not lost. They just haven't committed. They don't lack vision, they lack a schedule. The gym membership is ready. The online course is open. The business idea is sitting in a notebook. But it's not happening, not because of the world, or the economy, or their background, but because it's not in the schedule. If it's not in the plan, it doesn't get done, period. Think about it. Imagine two people. One is thinking about starting a podcast, and the other has scheduled every Tuesday at 6 p.m. to record. Who do you think ends up with episodes online? The dreamer or the planner? The difference isn't talent. It's not intelligence, it's structure. One is hoping, the other is working. And let's not kid ourselves, structure doesn't kill creativity, it multiplies it. The artist who blocks out 2 hours every morning to write isn't limiting their inspiration, they're giving it a place to show up. The entrepreneur who schedules time for learning isn't drowning in routine, they're building momentum. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And systems are built from schedules. A sign might inspire you for a moment, but a schedule will change you over time. A sign might make you feel seen, but a schedule makes you produce results. You can't scale your life on signs. You can't build a legacy on goosebumps and intuition. You build it by doing the boring things repeatedly, consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. Everyone wants to be disciplined, but no one wants to plan. Everyone wants results, but few are willing to sit down every week and say, what matters most to me? When will I do it? What will I cut to make room? That's the real work. And it's the part that gets skipped when you're waiting for some external force to push you into motion. Let's be honest. The reason we avoid schedules is because they force us to look in the mirror. A schedule reveals what you truly care about. It exposes your priorities. You can talk all day about how badly you want to write that book, but if there's no time blocked out to write, the schedule tells the truth. It's not judgmental, it's just honest, and most people aren't ready for that kind of honesty. But once you embrace it, once you realize that scheduling is a form of self-respect, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing signs and start showing up. You stop hoping and start doing. You stop asking for permission and start making decisions. And that's when momentum kicks in. That's when you start to feel purpose, not because the world gave you a sign, but because you gave yourself a direction. There's a certain peace that comes with a schedule. It removes the mental clutter. It silences the inner debate. You don't have to keep wondering when you'll start because it's already decided. You're not negotiating with yourself anymore. The time has been chosen, the task has been assigned, and your only job is to honor the commitment. Most people think they need motivation, but what they really need is consistency. And consistency doesn't come from emotion, it comes from repetition. From doing the thing over and over until it becomes a part of who you are. And that repetition only happens when you make time for it. Not someday. Not when things slow down. Not when I'm in the mood. But regularly. Predictably, with intention, a sign may feel magical, but a schedule is powerful. It's proof that you've stopped playing games with your future. It's proof that you're not waiting to be rescued, you're leading yourself. And leadership begins on the inside with a plan and a clock and the decision to keep showing up whether you feel like it or not. When you look back a year from now, you'll either be grateful you scheduled it or you'll be wishing you had. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with signs, it's filled with appointments. Show up for them. Motivation fades, but structure sustains. That's the truth most people learn the hard way. At first, they're on fire, inspired by a speech, moved by a video, jolted awake by a powerful quote. For a moment, they feel unstoppable. They clear their schedule, make big plans, set goals, buy journals, sign up for courses, and declare, "This time it's different." But then what happens? A week goes by, maybe two, and suddenly the fire dims. The energy drops. The old habits start creeping back in, and now the goals feel heavy instead of exciting. That initial wave of motivation crashes into the shore of reality, and just like that, the momentum is gone. This isn't because those people were weak or lazy. It's not because they didn't want it badly enough. It's because they relied on something that was never built to last. Motivation is a spark, and sparks are great for starting a fire, but terrible for keeping it burning. That's where structure comes in. Structure is the wood, the system, the fuel that keeps things going long after the excitement wears off. If motivation is emotion, then structure is discipline. And while emotion comes and goes like the weather, discipline stays because it's anchored in a plan. People who chase motivation are constantly restarting. They're always on a high or a low. When they feel good, they do the work. When they don't, they disappear. Their progress is inconsistent, their results are sporadic, and their self-esteem rises and falls with their mood. That's a roller coaster life, and it's exhausting. But people who build structure don't need to feel good to take action. They don't wait for inspiration. They trust their system. They wake up, follow the routine, do the work, and go to bed knowing they moved the needle whether they felt like it or not. This is one of the biggest separations between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs rely on motivation, professionals rely on systems. The amateur says, "I didn't feel motivated today." The professional says, "I showed up anyway." And that simple choice to work without motivation is what makes the difference over time. Because let's be honest, how often are you really motivated? A few times a week, a couple days a month. If you only act when you're motivated, you'll be unreliable to your own future. But if you act from structure, you become dependable. Consistent, trustworthy, not just to others but to yourself. Let's take the gym as an example. Everyone feels motivated the first week of January. The new year energy kicks in and the place is packed. But by February, most people are gone. Why? Because their motivation wasn't supported by a system. They didn't create a routine. They didn't plan their workouts, their meals, their schedule. They just relied on a feeling, And when that feeling left, so did their consistency. Meanwhile, the person who works out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. doesn't have to think about it. It's automatic. It's built into their life like brushing their teeth. That's the power of structure. You see the same thing with entrepreneurs. Someone gets an idea, gets excited, stays up all night dreaming about it. They build a website, order business cards, tell their friends. But then they realize they don't have a plan, no marketing schedule, no workflow, no budget, no time blocked for execution. So the idea fizzles, but the person who schedules 3 hours every day to build their brand, no matter how they feel, they're the one who breaks through. Not because their idea was better, but because their system was stronger. Structure creates freedom. That might sound backward at first, but it's true. When you have a system, you don't waste time wondering what to do. You're not caught in analysis paralysis. You're not debating with yourself all day. You just follow the plan, and ironically, that kind of discipline frees up your energy. It clears your mind. It gives you space to think creatively, because the essentials are already accounted for. Without structure, every day becomes a guessing game. With structure, every day becomes progress. Even in relationships, structure matters. People think love is enough to keep things strong. But love without intentional time, without communication rhythms, without shared habits, starts to erode. You can't rely on feelings alone. The most connected couples aren't the most emotional, they're the most consistent. They check in, they schedule time together, they build rituals. That's structure. And that's what sustains connection long after the butterflies fade. Now, some people resist structure because they think it's boring or rigid. But structure doesn't mean every second of your day is locked in. It means the most important things have a place. It means your values show up on your calendar. It means you're not living on accident, you're living on purpose. There's nothing boring about that. In fact, it's the only way to consistently create a life you're proud of. Motivation may get you started, but it's structure that keeps you moving when it's raining, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when no one is clapping for you. Structure says, this is what I do. This is who I am. It's not a mood, it's a mindset. And that mindset turns ordinary people into high performers, into creators, into leaders. Structure doesn't have to be complicated. It can start small, a morning routine, a weekly review, time blocked for what matters most. You don't need to overhaul your whole life in one night, but you do need to stop depending on motivation to save you, because it won't. It's not meant to. It was only ever meant to get you started. After that, it's up to you to build something that lasts. The irony is, when you build strong structure, motivation starts to visit you more often. Why? Because success is motivating, progress is energizing, and when your system starts producing results, even small ones, you feel more driven to keep going. You don't need to hype yourself up every day, because your system creates wins, and wins create momentum. But you can't get there if you're only working on the days you feel good. You need structure to bridge the gap between your intentions and your outcomes. So when you feel stuck, when the excitement dies down, when the motivation fades, don't panic. Don't quit. Don't chase a new feeling. Look at your structure. Look at your schedule. Look at your habits. That's where the truth lies. That's where the real change happens. Because in the end, the person who wins isn't the one who felt the best, it's the one who showed up the most. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't count. That's a principle people often overlook. They make grand declarations about what they want to do. They want to get in shape, start a business, write a book, rebuild a relationship, learn a language, save money, and yet, none of it is written down, none of it is scheduled. It all lives in their head like a cloudy wish list, drifting from day to day, hoping to catch a moment of inspiration or free time. But the truth is, if it's not scheduled, it's not serious. If it's not on your calendar, it's just noise. The calendar is more than a planner. It's a mirror. It reflects what you value, what you prioritize, and what you actually intend to do. You can tell someone's real goals not by what they say, but by how they plan their week. People say they want to improve, but the calendar shows no time for growth. They say they want to build, but their days are filled with distraction. They say they want peace, but every hour is packed with chaos. The disconnect isn't in their intentions, it's in their execution. You can want something deeply and still never reach it if you don't make time for it. Wishing doesn't move the needle, planning does. Time is the most limited resource we have, and the most mismanaged. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, but only a few truly own their hours. The rest just react. They move through the day responding to everything and everyone else. They live in reaction mode, not creation mode. And that's where the calendar becomes a weapon. It turns chaos into clarity. Think of your goals as appointments. Would you miss a meeting with your boss? Would you cancel a doctor's appointment last minute without rescheduling? Probably not. But people constantly cancel on themselves. They say, I'll work on that project later. I'll go to the gym tomorrow. I'll start the business when I have more time. The problem is, later never shows up on the calendar. Tomorrow always stays one step ahead. Someday is a black hole that eats up ambition. Until something has a time and a place, it doesn't exist in the real world. It lives in the land of maybe. People who make real progress don't have more motivation, they just have more structure. They don't let their calendar fill up with obligations that don't align with their purpose. They're intentional. They block time for their priorities. If learning matters to them, there's an hour for it every day. If health matters, their workouts are scheduled just like any other meeting. If family matters, it's not left to chance, it's protected. That's how goals move from abstract to actual, not through intensity, but through consistency. Some people resist putting their goals on the calendar because they think it's too rigid. They say, I want to live more freely. I don't want to be tied to a schedule. But freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want whenever you want. It comes from knowing your life is aligned with what you truly care about. You don't gain peace by being spontaneous all the time. You gain it by eliminating the stress of indecision. When your calendar reflects your values, you stop second, guessing how to spend your time. You don't waste energy deciding you already decided. Your calendar is not just about time management. It's identity management. Every time you block an hour for something important, you reinforce who you are becoming. You're not just writing a task, you're writing a vote for your future self. If you want to be a writer, you don't wait for inspiration. You block time to write. If you want to be fit, you don't wait until you feel like it. You block time to train. The calendar doesn't care how you feel. It reminds you who you said you wanted to be. People who are serious about their craft live by the clock. They know that excellence isn't created in occasional bursts, it's built in the quiet, daily, scheduled moments. The violinist practices every day, not just when the mood strikes. The entrepreneur works on the business even when sales are low. The student who becomes a master studies when others are scrolling. These are not acts of inspiration, they are acts of intention, and intention needs a time slot. There's a hidden power in showing up at the same time for the same thing. It creates rhythm. It builds trust in yourself. It rewires your identity. Every time you follow your calendar, you prove to yourself that you're disciplined, focused, and reliable. That self-trust is more powerful than motivation. It's the foundation for momentum. You stop being someone who just talks about their dreams and start being someone who builds them 1 hour at a time. Your calendar is also your shield. It protects you from the urgent but unimportant. It helps you say no to things that steal your time without delivering value. When someone asks you to do something that doesn't align with your goals, you can look at your calendar and say, I'm booked. And you are booked with your priorities, booked with your purpose, booked with becoming who you're meant to be. That kind of clarity is rare. That kind of discipline is respected. Now some people will say, but what if I fall behind? You will. Everyone does, But that's why the calendar is so powerful. It gives you a starting point to return to. It keeps you from drifting too far. It reminds you what matters. Without it, you can lose whole weeks or months before realizing you're off track. With it, you lose a day, maybe two, then you reset and move forward. That's the difference between a stumble and a collapse. Scheduling isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about creating a structure that supports the life you say you want. You don't need to fill every hour, but the important ones, the ones tied to your purpose, your health, your growth, your relationships, those should be sacred. Those should be written down, because what gets scheduled gets done. And what doesn't, no matter how noble or inspiring it sounds, slowly disappears into the noise of daily life. If you can open your calendar and clearly see your priorities, you're ahead of 90% of people. Most folks don't run their time runs them. They wake up, respond to whatever is loudest, and go to bed wondering where the day went. But when you plan ahead, even imperfectly, you shift from reacting to creating. From drifting to directing, from chaos to control. That small shift changes everything. The truth is, you're already scheduling something. Every hour is already spoken for, whether intentionally or accidentally. It might be filled with Netflix or scrolling or meetings or errands or overthinking. The question is, are you the one making the decisions, or are you letting your day be hijacked by whatever shows up? Until you decide to take control of your calendar will be controlled by everyone else's agenda. Success is built in hours, not hopes. That statement might sound simple, but it carries a heavy truth. People often dream about success, visualize it, talk about it, get excited by it, even get emotional over it. But none of that, on its own, builds anything. Hope feels good. It lights a spark. It gives you a sense of possibility. But without hours of consistent, focused work, hope becomes a comfortable illusion. You can hope your way into ideas, but you can't hope your way into achievement. Success demands time, and not just any time. It demands dedicated, structured, and intentional time. Most people think success is a product of breakthrough moments. They imagine there's some magical event, some lucky turn of events, some rare opportunity that launches everything into motion. But if you peel back the curtain on any successful person, entrepreneur, athlete, artist, leader, you won't find magic. You'll find hours. You'll find the early mornings, the late nights, the missed parties, the quiet study sessions, the repeated failures followed by another try. You'll find a person who traded their comfort in the present for their vision of the future, not in a moment, but in many, many hours of invisible effort. Hoping to be successful without putting in hours is like hoping to get strong without lifting weights. You can talk about it all day. You can read about strength, buy the gear, watch the videos, even visualize yourself doing it. But if you don't actually show up, rep after rep, your muscles won't grow. Success works the same way. You can surround yourself with books, quotes, inspiration, even great mentors. But if you don't put in the hours to apply, practice, build, and repeat, you will stay where you are. It's not about grand gestures or once-in-a-lifetime chances. It's about the compounding effect of small, focused efforts made over time. 1 hour of improvement a day turns into 365 hours a year. That's over 9 full 40-hour work weeks. That's enough time to get in shape, build a skill, launch a product, master a craft, or completely transform your mindset. But people don't think in hours. They think in emotions. They wait to feel ready, to feel motivated, to feel inspired. Meanwhile, the clock ticks on, and someone else, less emotional and more consistent, is making progress. Hope has its place. It's the spark that starts the engine. But after that, it's the schedule, the habits, and the disciplined hours that keep it running. The person who sits down every morning for 2 hours to write, will always outperform the person who feels like writing when the mood strikes. The one who trains daily, even when tired, will surpass the one who only trains when they're motivated. The student who studies 1 hour each day will know more than the one who crams once a month. In the end, it's not the one who hopes the hardest that wins. It's the one who shows up most often. There's something sacred about the hours no one sees. The hours where there's no applause, no recognition, no guarantees, just the quiet grind. Those hours are where confidence is built. Not the kind of false confidence that comes from affirmation, but the deep, unshakable kind that comes from experience. When you put in the hours, you build a library of proof inside yourself. You know what you're capable of because you've lived it. No one can take that away from you. People underestimate what they can build in an hour, and they overestimate what they can do in a day. They make huge to-do lists, feel overwhelmed, crash, and then quit. But 1 hour, focused, every day, that changes things. That's how books get written. That's how businesses are born. That's how habits are formed, bodies are transformed, skills are developed. The key isn't to sprint, it's to show up and do the work, even if it's just 1 solid hour. But that hour must be protected. It must be treated as sacred time, not optional, not flexible, not disposable. Success doesn't respond to your intentions. It responds to your calendar. The time you put in is the evidence of your commitment. People say they're committed to growth, but you look at their week, and there's no time blocked for reading, learning, building, or practicing. That's not commitment. That's a wish. The real commitment shows up when the schedule is tight, when the mood is low, and you still make time. That's when success starts to pay attention. It doesn't reward loud declarations. It rewards quiet consistency. Hours are the currency of success. You pay for growth with your time, not your intentions, not your ambitions, not your dreams. Those are free. But the price of mastery, the price of progress, the price of building something meaningful is always paid in hours. There's no shortcut around that. You can try to hack it, outsource it, shortcut it, but nothing replaces time invested. Even if you buy someone else's program or mentorship, you still have to put in the time to apply it. You still have to show up and do the work. The good news is that the hours don't have to be perfect. They just have to be honest. You don't need every session to be brilliant. You don't need every attempt to succeed. You just need to be there, putting in the time, staying engaged with the process. Because the more time you spend with your craft, your mission, your goal, the more it begins to shape you. The hours you invest not only build your dream, they build you into the kind of person who can handle the dream when it arrives. When people look at successful individuals, they often see the outcomes, the accolades, the results, the lifestyle. What they miss are the thousands of hours behind the scenes, the time when no one was watching, the early mornings when they chose discipline over sleep, the late nights when they worked after others had stopped, the weekends spent studying instead of partying. Those are the hours that built everything, not the photos, not the speeches, not the highlights, but the quiet, repetitive labor of showing up again and again. If you want to change your life, change the way you use your hours. Stop trying to leap to success. Start stacking small blocks of time. 1 hour a day, aimed at the right target, will beat bursts of energy aimed at everything. Stop waiting for the perfect time and start claiming imperfect hours. Because if you don't use your hours, someone else will. The world is full of distractions ready to devour your time. You can either invest it into your future or donate it to someone else's agenda. Every hour matters. Each one is a brick. You're either building something or letting the materials go to waste. There's no middle ground. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to get your hours in. Even when it's boring, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because those are the hours that build resilience. Those are the hours that separate the wishful from the successful. Those are the hours that transform hope into reality. Discipline is born from routine, not inspiration. That's one of the most misunderstood truths about progress. People think discipline is some rare quality, something you're born with, a personality trait reserved for the elite. the driven, the highly motivated. But that's not how it works. Discipline is not a spark, it's not a mood, and it's certainly not something that shows up when you feel good. Discipline is forged in the small, repeated actions you do daily, regardless of how you feel. It's not a gift from the universe, it's a byproduct of structure, and the foundation of that structure is routine. Inspiration is exciting, but it's also unstable. It comes and goes like the weather. You can't rely on it to show up every morning at 6, or when your alarm goes off, or when you sit down to write, or when you're staring at a blank screen. Inspiration doesn't care about your goals. It has no loyalty to your dreams. One day it'll show up with energy and vision, and the next it'll be gone without warning. That's why those who depend on inspiration will always move in cycles, productive for a week, lost the next, stuck in a pattern of starting strong and quitting quietly. It's not that they don't want it, it's that they never built the mechanism to support it. That mechanism is routine. Routine is what trains your body, your mind, and your habits to operate on command. It's what creates a system where success becomes predictable instead of accidental. You don't have to wait to feel like it, because your routine doesn't ask how you feel. It simply reminds you what time it is and what must be done. It removes emotion from the equation. You wake up, you follow the plan, you execute the task. It might not be thrilling, but it's effective. And over time, it builds something more powerful than motivation. It builds identity. That's the real secret. Routine builds identity, and identity fuels discipline. When you do something over and over again, you stop seeing it as something you're trying to do, and you start seeing it as part of who you are. The person who writes every day becomes a writer. The person who trains every day becomes an athlete. The person who studies every day becomes a learner. These aren't goals anymore. They're reflections of identity. And when something becomes part of your identity, you no longer need to force yourself to do it. You just do it because it's what you do. Most people don't have a discipline problem. They have a routine problem. They're chasing big goals with inconsistent systems. They want extraordinary outcomes with ordinary habits. They think they need to fix their mindset when really, they need to fix their mornings. They need to stop hoping they'll feel productive and start structuring their day to create productivity. Because discipline doesn't show up because you want it. It shows up because you built a routine that leaves no other option. There's something powerful about consistency. It teaches you things inspiration never could. It shows you what you're capable of on your worst days, not just your best. It forces you to push past resistance, not avoid it. It trains your brain to get to work, even when everything in you wants to rest. And that kind of mental training spills into every area of your life. The discipline you build in one area strengthens your confidence in others. You stop being the kind of person who quits when it's hard, and you start becoming the kind of person who keeps going simply because that's who you are now. Routine also simplifies decision-making. One of the most draining parts of modern life is the endless stream of choices. What to eat, when to work, what to work on, whether to exercise, whether to study, when to sleep. Every choice drains a little bit of your willpower, but a strong routine eliminates unnecessary decisions. You don't have to decide whether to work. You already know what time it happens. You don't have to decide what to focus on. You already have a plan that frees up mental energy for deeper work and better results. And the more you stick to the routine, the more that discipline becomes second nature. But people resist routines because they want flexibility. They think structure will kill creativity or rob them of freedom. The truth is, the opposite is true. Discipline through routine is what gives you freedom. When you control your time, you control your life. When you know your key actions are taken care of, you can be present. You can think clearly. You can say no to distractions because your essentials are already handled. Discipline doesn't restrict you. It liberates you from the chaos of randomness and reaction. Routine gives you anchors in the storm. When life gets hard, and it will, your routine becomes a place of certainty. It's something you can return to when everything else feels uncertain. That's why people who succeed long-term all have rituals, patterns, systems. They've built a world where discipline isn't something they chase. It's something they live. They don't need to wait for the perfect moment, because every day is already structured to produce progress. That's the power of routine. It doesn't just move you forward, it protects you from sliding backward. You can see it in the lives of athletes, musicians, writers, entrepreneurs, anyone who achieves anything meaningful. They have routines. Their days are carved into blocks of focus and execution. They might adjust their plan, but they don't abandon it. They understand that inspiration might spark the fire, but routine keeps it burning. They show up, not because they're always inspired, but because their system demands it. And that system, over time, builds the discipline that separates them from those who are still waiting to feel ready. Discipline built through routine is also deeply personal. It's not about copying someone else's schedule. It's about designing a rhythm that fits your life, your goals, your energy. It might be waking up early, or working late, or carving out a block of time in the middle of your lunch break. The key is consistency. The key is showing up at the same time, in the same way, over and over again, until the habit is stronger than the resistance. That's when the discipline locks in, not because you force it every day, but because you've trained yourself to expect it. You'll still have days where it's hard. There will still be moments where you want to quit, where your mind tries to talk you out of it, where everything else seems more comfortable. But your routine will carry you. The decision has already been made. You don't need to rethink it. You don't need to renegotiate. You simply honor the rhythm you built, and with each repetition, you reinforce the identity you're becoming. And that, more than anything, is what makes discipline sustainable. Not hype, not emotion, not willpower, but a quiet, steady rhythm that makes your future inevitable. The schedule is the proof of your priorities. People say a lot of things about what matters to them. They say they want to get healthy, but there's no workout scheduled. They say they want to grow their business, but there's no time blocked for strategy or learning. They say they want better relationships, but their calendar is filled with work and distractions. What they don't realize is that the calendar never lies. You can say your priorities out loud, you can write them in a journal, you can put them on a vision board, but if they don't show up in your schedule, they're not real. They're just ideas, just intentions with no time slot. People often believe that their values are reflected in what they feel or what they want, but your true values are reflected in how you use your time. Time is the most honest mirror of your character and commitment. It doesn't matter how passionately you speak about your goals if you don't make time for them. Time is the currency of life, and how you spend it is the truest measure of what you care about. That's why the schedule is not just a tool for productivity. It's a personal statement. It's your declaration to yourself and the world about what you believe deserves your energy and your focus. The truth is, everyone is busy. Everyone has demands pulling at them from all directions. The difference between those who move forward and those who stay stuck isn't about being less busy. It's about being more intentional. Everyone has the same 24 hours. What separates the productive from the distracted is not time management. It's priority management. It's being honest about what really matters and then backing that up with consistent time investment. You don't have to tell people what you care about. Just show them your calendar, and they'll see it for themselves. The schedule reveals everything. It shows whether you're serious or just interested. If you say health is important, but there's no time for exercise or sleep or cooking good food, the schedule reveals the truth. If you say your family matters, but there's no dedicated time for conversation, presence, or connection, the calendar shows the real story. If you say you want to grow in your career, but there's no time set aside for deep work, learning, or skill development. The calendar proves otherwise. You might not like what it shows, but it's always honest. It's easy to talk about priorities. It's easy to post about them, journal about them, even dream about them. But the schedule demands commitment. It demands sacrifice. It forces you to choose. Because time is limited, every yes to something on your calendar is a no to something else. And that's where clarity begins. When you start scheduling your real priorities, you'll have to make space. And that means letting go of lesser things. The scroll time, the mindless habits, the distractions, the people pleasing. It all gets exposed when you start planning your time with intention. There's something powerful about seeing your priorities written down in blocks of time. It removes the guesswork. It eliminates the excuse of "I'll get to it later." Later doesn't exist on the calendar. Later is a story we tell ourselves to avoid making hard choices now. But when you schedule something, you commit. You make a promise to your future self. You say, "This matters enough to earn a place in my day." And once something has a place, it has momentum. It's not a maybe anymore, it's an appointment. Successful people treat their priorities like appointments they can't miss. They show up on time, they prepare for them, they protect them from interruptions. That's not luck or personality, that's clarity. That's living with conviction instead of convenience. Most people drift because they never decide what matters enough to schedule. They live in reaction, not intention. They spend their days responding to everything that demands their attention, and then wonder why there's no progress on the things that matter most. You can't fix your life until you fix your time. You can't grow in any meaningful way if your calendar is filled with everything except what supports that growth. And yet, that's exactly how many people live. They fill their days with obligations, errands, distractions, and emergencies, and then try to squeeze in their real goals when there's leftover time. But there's rarely any leftover time. That's why you have to start with the non-negotiables. You don't fit your priorities into your life after the fact. You build your life around them from the start. The schedule also provides accountability. It holds you to a standard. When you look at the week ahead and see your key priorities already blocked in, you're more likely to follow through. You don't leave your success to chance. You engineer it. You don't wait to feel motivated. You honor the time slot. And every time you follow through on your scheduled priorities, you build trust with yourself. That self-trust becomes the foundation for confidence. You no longer hope you'll be consistent. You have proof that you are. The beauty of using your schedule as a mirror for your priorities is that it also gives you control. You stop being a victim of your circumstances. You stop telling yourself that you're too busy, too distracted, or too tired. You realize you have more power than you thought, because no matter how chaotic your life is, you can still decide where some of your time goes. Even 30 minutes of focused effort on a true priority is more powerful than hours of aimless motion. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is to be intentional. Every time you schedule something meaningful, you take a stand. You tell the world, "This matters to me, and I'm making room for it." And the more you do that, the more your life begins to reflect your values. You become the architect instead of the passenger. You stop waiting for time to show up and start showing up for your time. That shift might feel small at first, but it compounds. 1 week of scheduled priorities turns into 1 month, then 1 year, and before long, your results start to mirror your intentions. The schedule helps you avoid regret. Most people don't look back and regret what they did. They regret what they didn't make time for, the book they didn't write, the skill they didn't learn, the people they didn't connect with, the health they didn't protect. But when you schedule your real priorities, you protect yourself from that kind of regret. You don't leave your future up to chance. You create it 1 hour at a time, even when things get chaotic, and they will. A schedule helps you find your footing. Life will throw curveballs. There will be seasons of disruption, setbacks, emergencies, and unexpected demands. But if your priorities are already a part of your life in a structured way, you're much more likely to return to them quickly. You won't have to start over every time life knocks you down. You'll have a rhythm to return to, a compass to guide you back. The calendar won't lie to you. It won't flatter you. It won't tell you what you want to hear. But it will always show you the truth. It will reveal where your time is going, what you've chosen to value, and what's getting sacrificed along the way. If you want to change your life, you don't need more words. You need a different schedule. One that reflects the life you say you want to build. One that shows, hour by hour, that your goals are more than talk, that your values are more than theories, that your priorities are more than dreams. They're scheduled, they're real, they're happening,